All right. This is my musing for today. So, eBay has what's called insertion fees. These are small fees that apply, actually, in the space that I'm working in. They're not small, but these are fees that apply to every listing that you put up there, right? So you have a variety of different ways this can play out, but in my case, standard listing fee is going to be 35 cents. Okay? Now, this can vary if you have a store subscription. So if you have the most basic, they think they call it the starter store subscription, it's 30 cents. If you have what they call the starter store subscription, it's going to be 25 cents. And these happen beyond a certain threshold. So for these two, it's beyond the first 250 listings in a month. For this one, it's going to be beyond the first 1,000. Okay? So that's where we're starting this whole thing. This is just what has been going on in my brain about this. So, I passed over my 250 for this month already, which means I have another 16 listings that at each were 35 cents a piece, and therefore now I have to deal with a total of $5.60 in addition to what else is going on, right? Is what it is. Not all that concerned for the most part. It's just 16, it's $5, whatever. However, it does make me wonder how this plays out over the rest of the month, because now I'm over that, right? So let's say that I take the rest of the cards that I have, which approximately is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 350 to 370 some cards. That's the rest of what I've got currently in the collection, and the remainder of what I'm looking to do is to move forward from that into the, what's the word I'm looking for? Into getting more inventory. So if I'm getting more inventory, then what I'm inevitably going to end up with is more than that, right? So that means that this number right here is not going to stay the same. That's going to go up. $5.60 is not trippy, but the potential of this is going to bloom. So even if, let's say, because this is the combination of both the Yu-Gi-Oh! And the Pokemon that I have left, let's say we cross that out and it's just the Pokemon's around 220, give or take, then that would be 220 times 3.5 equals $77 in insertion fees. That is a big cut into my profitability. So what can be done? Well, let's actually break this down, because I would like to show this from this angle as well. So let's say I'm selling $199, right? Now, standard, we're going to have a situation where we have our $199 is our sell price, and then we're going to have our transaction fees, which are about 13.6%, and that is going to be 59 cents, and then we're going to have our shipping label for a single card like that, which is going to yield us 66 cents. Okay? 66 cents, which per 100 cards sold would be $66 in profit. Comparatively, we have that same situation with the insertion fee. We now include 35 cents, 59 cents, and 74 cents, right? Which means we just take all that, and that reduces us down to 31 cents, which means per 100 cards, that's only $31. I think you can see how that impacts on a pretty regular basis, right? So this is where I am now making considerations of things. Okay, so on a set of 250, that means if we sell all of those 250 and we're making the 61 cents, which means per 100 cards we're making $61, but for 250 we are making $152 and change, right? Versus if that 250 is only 31 cents, right? Let's say we sold 500 cards in a month. The first half we made 152. The second half we made doing the math real quick, we made 250 times 31 cents, we made $77 and change, which is a difference. 152 minus 77 of $75. So we're missing out on $75 in pure profit off of this. Okay, understandable. And maybe not all of these at this point in time in my current situation are going to sell in that regard. Like for the first month, I've had 30 sales, 32 at the time of recording this, right? And so what that has resulted in is a reasonable, a very extremely reasonable, exceptional actually, in by all regards, profit because of some of the things that I've sold, because I've been selling out of a collection rather than just starting with pure bulk. And the reality is that continuing this, I will likely be purchasing more bulk the next time I purchase inventory, which means it's not necessarily going to yield as high returns on investment, because there's A, going to be an investment that I can now calculate, and B, there's not going to be as much value inherently. So all that is to say, that's what we're missing out on. By comparison, if we had 1,000 free listings, then we sold out of that 1,000, we make this same amount, but then that next 250 that we sell, we make the same amount. So now it's $304 that we made out of that, right? We're not missing out on that $75 anymore. We're making all of it. But we do have to consider the fact that we are paying for a subscription for that in order to sell that same amount, that 500 cards, in order for that to go and do what it's going to do. But that subscription, if you subscribe even just on the month-to-month basis, which is more expensive, it's $28, which is going to end up being, just let it solve it for us, $276. So comparatively, if we did that 152 and 77 and we add those together, then that's 229, right? So realistically, even including this bit here, we are still at a point where we are netting more by a pretty significant margin. To be exact, we are still making $47 more, which, let's be clear, is plenty to be able to buy more bulk cards, and is also enough to where we take this amount and we can then obviously turn that into more in general. This is also enough to where, if we've got 1,000 listings and we've bought bulk out of the initial amount that I have earned from this, and then we are getting more. Let's say we wind up with another 500 cards when I make my next purchase, right? That 500 is exactly what we are discussing right here. Which means I now have the current inventory I have, the additional inventory that I have, which all of that has that potential to then accumulate more. So to net the 47 extra out of this, right, because we're actually walking away with this, then that 276, we can go buy collection with that. We can go buy equipment with that. So this is kind of the thing that I'm thinking about currently as I'm processing all this, because currently on the agenda right now, I've got $370 some in sales, which is going to end up resulting, once everything's said and done, in around close to $230 in profit, right? And that's because of the, and that's purely off of just the eBay side of things. So it doesn't include the fact that I did have to buy some supplies, did have to get some other things. So let me actually see if I can get this information real quick. So I can give you a better idea of what's actually going on. So as it stands right now, my current income for, well, actually we'll jump it back to June. So for June, the income that I had was $200.09. The expenses that I had, $113.36, which meant we walked away with $86.73. And for the month of July so far, because I had an Umbreon sell for $120, we have added to that $145.46, which means we are getting to mathematics. We are getting to $232.19, and then my expenses have been $44.54. So actually, what comes out of this current month, my profit from this month is showing me, and this is not fully up to date. I still have to put some more things in here. We're looking at July as $100.92, and June $86.73, $187.65. So that's where we're currently sitting as far as our profit goes, is this number, $187. So with that said, I'm going to have to portion out some of this for taxes, and then what's remaining out of that is going to get portioned down to buying more inventory and saving toward equipment and supplies. Right? So this right here, I might set aside a larger portion for that, but we'll see, because this amount coming out of here, this is a conversation to be had. But yeah, so this kind of thing, it's an important discussion with this, and I'm currently debating certain other ideas, namely how TCG Player might play into this, especially with the Yu-Gi-Oh that I have. I have about 154 cards of Yu-Gi-Oh, give or take, unique cards, I should say, for Yu-Gi-Oh, and then, like I said, the 220 for Pokemon. So there is theoretical idea that, what I could approach, instead of posting these to eBay, I post this bit to TCG Player, and I post that to eBay. Or I could look at it like I'm going to post all of this to TCG Player instead of to eBay, therefore avoiding those insertion fees entirely. But there's of course pros and cons to it, right? I've already sold some stuff on eBay. I don't necessarily want to stop listing to eBay, because that is how that space is going to grow by continuing to list to it. But having 200 and some cards to be able to port over to a TCG Player account that is completely fresh will give me an opportunity to fill the stock there with something. And because they are typically lower value cards, that might mean that there's a little bit more room for those to kind of do what they're going to do. All that is to say, I have to make decisions. So, that's kind of it. At this point, the question remains, do we carry on with eBay solo and make the purchase of a store subscription so we can continue listing at the best value? Do we slow down our posting to eBay by either posting to TCG Player or posting only some to eBay and some to TCG Player? Do we just completely nix this for the rest of the month and focus on trying to do this? Maybe. I don't know. Because the reality is, I went through and last night I put together an account for this. And I have to wait for it to be approved and all that at this point, which I was unaware of that it being an existing feature or bug, whatever you want to call it. But while I wait for that, I ran into this circumstance. And I did sell 2 more Yu-Gi-Oh cards today. So it's a weird duality going on here, if I'm being honest, because I am seeing that this is obviously starting. I have been told that the cross-listing between the two of these is a good thing, and I believe that is true. But to invest more time into starting something completely from scratch is going to require me to put more attention into this space and learn this in order to be able to start something with it. And this is still so early that I'm just like, I don't know. I think that there is a lot to be said about just cutting to it, keep going toward that one space, try to develop this one until it reaches a point where it just sort of hits that flow state, and then start doing this, because at this point I don't want to do it in such a way where I'm listing the same things to both. I don't really have enough stock to really fill both, and then I have to leverage my time for both. I don't know. I'm undecided, but I will make a decision, and I am confident I will tell you about it. But anyway, if you want card treasure, consider the Pirates. Card Pirate Captain out.